This is live from New Delhi. You're watching DT India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhatt, coming up in the next hour. President Trump issues ultimatum to Hamas with severe consequences if hostages are not freed immediately. Yet another blow to Ukraine as US suspends intelligence sharing after pausing military aid. And France open to discussing extension of nuclear deterrence for peace in Europe, says President Macron. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi makes strong pitch for round-the-year tourism in Uttarakhand. Liverpool stuns PSG with late winner in UEFA Champions League last 16 round. Reds goalkeeper Alisson makes 9 saves. 10-man Barcelona beat Benfica. Top story. President Donald Trump has issued a stern threat to Hamas with severe consequences if hostages are not freed. U.S. Hostage Affairs Envoy Adam Boehler has been authorized to talk directly with Hamas, which is seen as a big departure from the decades-old policy against negotiating with groups that the United States brands the terrorist organizations. Meanwhile, US has also vehemently rejected any alternative Gaza reconstruction plan proposed or endorsed by Arab leaders, citing inadequacies of the proposal to address the uninhabitable realities of Gaza. Trump is, remember, endorsing Gaza free Gaza free from Hamas vision, and this report gets you more details.
US President Donald Trump delivered a stern ultimatum to Hamas, demanding release of all remaining hostages in Gaza or face destruction. In a forceful statement, Trump wrote, and I quote, "Salom Hamas means hello and goodbye, you can choose. Release all of the hostages now, not later, and immediately return all of the dead bodies of the people you have murdered, or it's over for you. Only sick and twisted people keep bodies, and you are sick and twisted. I'm sending Israel everything it needs to finish the job. Not a single Hamas member will be safe you don't do as I say. I have just met with your former hostages whose lives you have destroyed. This is your last warning. For the leadership, now is the time to leave Gaza while you still have a chance. Also to the people of Gaza, a beautiful future awaits, but not if you hold hostages. If you do, you are dead. Make a smart decision. Release the hostages now, or there will be hell to pay later." In another development in a significant break from the decades-old policy, the US President Donald Trump administration has been conducting secret talks with Hamas to negotiate the possible release of American hostages. Talking to Hamas breaks a long-standing taboo against negotiating with groups the US sees as terrorist organizations. White House said US Hostage Affairs Envoy Adam Boehler has the authority to talk directly with Hamas.
Well, when it comes to the negotiations that you're referring to, first of all, the special envoy who's engaged in those negotiations does have the authority to talk to anyone. Israel was consulted on this matter. And look, dialogue and talking to people around the world to do what's in the best interest of the American people is something that the president has proven is what he believes is good faith effort to do what's right for the American people.
Besides this, European nations unequivocally stated that Hamas must be stripped of its governing role in the Gaza Strip. On Tuesday, Egypt presented Gaza reconstruction in the Arab League summit in Cairo, which was outrightly rejected by Israel. However, Hamas has welcomed the Arab proposal to rebuild the Gaza Strip under a future Palestinian Authority administration. The plan is also seen as a counter to President Trump's proposal for US control and resettlement of Gaza's residents. Earlier in February, President Trump posted a AI-generated video promoting the transformation of Gaza into a Gulf state-like resort. Under the redevelopment plan for Gaza, he wants to clean out the population of about 2 million people to create the Riviera of the Middle East. Aman Kumar Himanshu's report for DD India.
Jessica Taneja of DD India joining us live on this big story. Jessica, tracking it closely. So the Riviera of Middle East template by President Trump with the stern warning to Hamas, hell to pay, quote unquote. Jessica, share more details, and where is this coming from, and what could be the implications, the broader implications here?
Well, if you see the fragile ceasefire that has been continuing for a while now and talks to be held in Qatar, and what we've seen so far from President Donald Trump is a repeated warning for Hamas when it comes to hell to pay, or in order to suggest that there has to be lasting peace, wherein the Gaza plan of reconstruction, according to him and his idea, was to make it into a Middle East Riviera, as we've been reporting in the last few days. Now, if you'd look at the recent developments when it comes to how the Arab leaders are meeting, and in the recent past, especially when Egypt is leading the efforts when it comes to a plan that would rebuild Gaza. We know that plan now in a 90-page glossy document. It talks about investing $54 billion in the next several years, with several phases laid out as to how that will be executed when it comes to countering Trump's Middle East Riviera plan. But amidst all of this chaos, of course, considering what the people of Gaza want at this point is at the heart of the issue as well, because according to Trump's plan for reconstruction, it would require to displace them, which the Arab leaders certainly don't agree on. And
right.
According to their new plan for Gaza, which was released just yesterday, they seem to suggest that it has to house the people of Gaza while also continuing to rebuild those efforts, rebuilding efforts of Gaza, starting with the removal of rubble. And it's going to take several years. But the stability of the region is what matters at this point. And the emphasis
right.
on the stability and the precise, importance of not witnessing another war in the region is important to those rebuilding efforts.
Right. The stability of the region, Jessica, as you pointed out, clearly hangs in balance. But what we also do know is that US and Israel have vehemently rejected the Arab leaders' Gaza peace plan. So there's this larger question of where is this potential long-term truce going, or is it actually in the vision, considering the kind of lines that have come from the President Trump's administration?
That's correct, Sakul, and we have received and heard of reports suggesting that the Arab leaders insist on a two-state solution for Palestine, which of course is not in agreement with Israel at all. Until that conflict or sort of point of argument, so to say, or point of friction continues to persist, there will not be much movement when it comes to ceasefire or any kind of peace in the region, which has seen displacement of more than 2 million people, and their lives continue to be affected daily, with 8 trucks not being allowed to enter Gaza and many other roadblocks that threatens their very existence. Certainly, who gets to rule Gaza after this, or govern, if I may put it in better words, Gaza after this, with Hamas continuing to maintain the stance that they will not disarm themselves. They will not disarm at any point, and Israel demanding that this is one of the necessary, this is one of the requirements, alongside, of course, Hamas not having any political ambitions. So setting up a governing structure for the region is also important. And with this continued point of friction where two-state solution is at the heart of emphasis for the Arab leaders, but in complete disagreement for Israel, and with now Donald Trump at the helm of affairs, who he did recently meet with the hostages, the American-Israeli hostages that they were released. This is perhaps what it will lead to in the future: American interests and American transactionalism, and what it sees best in the entire gamut of geopolitics we're witnessing right now.
Yes, Jessica aptly put it, the American transactionalism. Having said that, one final question very quickly. In your understanding, there are risks involved getting Hamas to the negotiating table. You have now US saying that, yes, we are ready to sit down and talk to you and negotiate. This could have risks involved.
Well, it's certainly a breakaway from what we've seen in the recent past, especially engaging or holding talks with an organization which the Americans list as a terrorist, as designated terrorists, Hamas, and direct talks with them, and that to two that have taken place in the recent past in Qatar. We're given to understand, which has been hosting the talks for ceasefire negotiations between, but not that we've seen even Steve Witkoff, who is the special envoy of America for the Middle East, engage in direct talks. It's Adam Boehler who's leading the talks and the negotiation for the hostages, who has had two engagements or say talks with the Hamas side. So we'll have to wait and see on what those talks really are able to achieve at this point. But with the current situation that is unfolding, it is certain that there will be a point where we'll see a breakthrough from the recent past of traditions on how wars and conflicts are resolved. One will only have to wait and see in 2025 how that sort of takes shape.
Yeah, right. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Jessica Taneja, for sharing those details, and how this is going to pan out from here could be anybody's guess. Thank you, meanwhile. Thank you. And shifting to other big stories at this hour, well, after pausing military aid to Ukraine, US has now cut off its intelligence sharing with Kyiv, curbing and impacting its ability, that's the Ukraine's ability, to target Russian forces. Now, this move has raised significant pressure, pushing Ukrainian president to come to the table for negotiations, though White House has said that the funding pause is in review. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron has also offered to extend country's nuclear deterrent to its partners. Here is more.
In a fresh move to increase significant pressure on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to cooperate in a peace deal, the United States has cut off its intelligence sharing with Ukraine, impacting Kyiv's ability to defend itself from Russian forces. Since the war began in 2022, US intelligence has been vital to Ukraine's battlefield strategy. Marking a significant shift in US policy, CIA Director John Ratcliffe confirmed the decision on Wednesday. US is also reconsidering its pause in funding for Ukraine, which was announced by Donald Trump.
I believe what the National Security Council told me in regards to that was that they paused or they are reconsidering the funding for Ukraine.
Ukrainian President Zelensky hailed the announcement, calling it a positive movement in talks with Washington, hinting at a potential high-level meeting soon. On Tuesday, while addressing the US Congress, Trump revealed that he had received a letter from Zelensky signaling Kyiv's willingness to engage in peace talks.
Всі бачать, наскільки швидко.
Everyone can see how quickly diplomatic events are unfolding. Today, our teams, Ukraine and the United States, have begun working on a meeting. Andrei Yermak and Michael Waltz have spoken, and there is a positive movement. We hope for the first results next week.
4 senior members of Donald Trump's entourage held telephonic conversation with some of the Ukrainian president's top political opponents and discussed the possibility of Ukraine presidential elections. After US announcement, European leaders extended their support for Ukraine. French President Emmanuel Macron announced that he would discuss extending France's nuclear deterrent to European partners and raised the possibility of sending European troops to Ukraine to enforce a peace deal.
Semaine prochaine, nous réunirons à Paris.
As soon as next week, we will gather in Paris army chiefs who wish to take their responsibility in this matter. And so this is a plan for a solid, lasting, verifiable peace, which we have prepared with the Ukrainians and several European partners, and which I defended in the United States 2 weeks ago and across Europe. And I would like to believe that the United States will stay by our side, but we have to be ready if this isn't the case.
European Union leaders are set to hold a special European Council summit in Brussels on Thursday, aimed to endorse bold steps to increase defense spending and pledge support for Ukraine amid growing concerns the continent can no longer be assured of US security. Bureau Report, DD India.
And still to come on DT India News Hour. Coming up next, US grants 1-month tariff exemption for automakers after talks with Ford, GM and Stellantis. Japan and Britain to hold high-level economic security talks. And UN to slash Russians to Rohingya refugees by half to $6 per month after failing to find funds.
This is a special episode focused on the extraordinary achievements of India's G20 presidency and its continuing legacy.
India is the only country which has been able to achieve success on close to 112 outcomes in 88 different paragraphs. This extent of consensus on a very, very ambitious and inclusive agenda has never before been achieved. There was positivity, there was optimism, there was confidence, and there was a perspective that India would provide good leadership which would be fair, just, and ambitious and inclusive. And that is what India did.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt. Let's move on now. The United States on Wednesday granted a 1-month exemption on his new tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada for US automakers. The pause comes after President Trump spoke with leaders of the big three automakers, namely Ford, General Motors and Stellantis on Wednesday. The White House said that the U.S. is also open to hearing about other products that should be exempted from the tariffs, which took effect on Tuesday.
We spoke with the big three auto dealers. We are going to give a 1-month exemption on any autos coming through USMCA. Reciprocal tariffs will still go into effect on April 2nd. But at the request of the companies associated with USMCA, the president is giving them an exemption for 1 month so they are not at an economic disadvantage. So the three companies that he spoke to are Stellantis, Ford, and General Motors. They requested the call, they made the ask, and the president is happy to do it. It's a 1-month exemption.
Wall Street stocks rallied after the announcement, with shares of the three automakers each surging about 6% or more. The American Automotive Policy Council said it applauded Trump's move. US President Donald Trump has accused the Canadian leader Justin Trudeau of playing up a Canada-US trade war to cling to power after they spoke on phone on Wednesday. Trump in a social media post said that Prime Minister Trudeau was unable to tell him when the Canadian elections are going to take place, which made him curious. Trump further wrote that he then realized that Trudeau is trying to use this issue to stay in power. President Trump again took a dig at the Canadian Prime Minister, calling him Governor Trudeau and accusing his administration's weak border policies of allowing tremendous amounts of fentanyl and illegal immigrants into the US. He also said that the call with Trudeau ended in a somewhat friendly manner. Trudeau and Trump have had fractious relationship since Trump's return to White House in January, as the pair sparred over trade and fentanyl trafficking on numerous occasions. US Vice President J.D. Vance has said that the US intends to increase resources at the southern border, including artificial intelligence-related technologies, as he concluded a tour of a portion of the US-Mexico border. Vance, accompanied by US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and US Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, viewed the border from a military helicopter, toured a detention facility, and also held a roundtable discussion with Texas officials. Vance said that the visit visit drove home the need to finish building the physical border wall, but also to include the use of artificial intelligence to monitor the area. He added that the U.S. military continues to focus its attention on Mexican drug cartels, but stated that the U.S. has no intention of invading Mexico as part of that fight.
We're using artificial intelligence to make us better at the job of border enforcement, but we've got to make sure that technology is deployed across the entire American southern border. We're going to do it as much as we can, as broadly as we can, because that's how we're going to protect the American people's security.
Japan and Britain are arranging to hold high-level economic security talks on Friday until U.S. tariffs reared their head. It will be the first time for Japan and the United Kingdom to hold a 2+2 meeting focused on economic matters. Both are U.S. allies, but that factor is not likely to exempt them from President Donald Trump's sweeping levies on major trading partners. Joint talks between the country's foreign and trade ministers in Tokyo this week have been touted as a chance to promote free trade and strengthen business ties in sectors from tech and defense to renewable energy. UK Foreign Office said in a statement that economic growth and future prosperity depended upon strong security foundations, a reliable trading system and an economy resilient to shocks. United Nations has warned it will force Russians to be halved for around 1 million Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh from next month. The UN World Food Programme said in a letter that severe funding shortfalls had forced to cut in monthly food vouchers from $12.50 to $6 per person. The letter comes days after a visit by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who is slated to meet Rohingya refugees. Huge numbers of the persecuted and stateless Rohingya community live in squalid relief camps in Bangladesh, most arriving after having fled from 2017 military crackdown in neighboring Myanmar. Successive aid cuts have already caused severe hardship among Rohingyas in the overcrowded settlements who are reliant on aid and suffer from rampant malnutrition. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in the North Indian state of Uttarakhand as part of the state's winter tourism program. Prime Minister Modi performed puja at the winter seat of the Ganga River in Mukhwa village in the state. The puja ceremony of the Ganga River took place ahead of a public function in Harshil. The winter tourism program initiated by the Uttarakhand government seeks to boost the local economy by promoting religious tourism. The program has already seen thousands of devotees visiting the winter seats of Gangotri, Yamunotri, Kedarnath and Badrinath. With Prime Minister Modi's visit, the state hopes to further showcase its tourism potential and attract more visitors to the region. Prime Minister Modi, through his binoculars, was also seen appreciating the views of the snow-covered Uttarakhand mountains. He was also seen waving at the crowd gathered to welcome him. Local Uttarakhandi men and women, the local population dressed in traditional Garhwali attire, danced to folklore and folk songs, circling around the Prime Minister. Further, Indian Prime Minister walked through an exhibition also put up on tourism and iconic tourist locations in the state of Uttarakhand that were displayed through photographs. Prime Minister Modi also flagged off a trek and a bike rally in Harshil. The rally aims at promoting adventure tourism in the region under the winter tourism program of Uttarakhand. Prime Minister Modi earlier arrived at the Jolly Grant Airport of state capital of Dehradun on Thursday morning. He was received by Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami, Assembly Speaker Ritu Bhushan Kanduri and other dignitaries upon his arrival earlier today. And amid a thunderous applause and chants for him, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was felicitated as he arrived on the stage in Harshil. Various dignitaries of the Indian government were present on stage along with Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami. Addressing a public rally in Harshal, Prime Minister Modi emphasized on the need of diversity in the tourism sector, adding that no season should be off-season in Uttarakhand.
सर्दियों में देश के बड़े हिस्से में जब कोहरा होता है, सूर्य देव के दर्शन नहीं होते, तब पहाड़ों पर धूप का आनंद मिल रहा होता है। ये एक स्पेशल इवेंट बन सकता है। और गढ़वाली में से क्या कहेंगे? घाम तापो पर्यटन। खासकर हमारे कॉरपोरेट वर्ल्ड के साथी वे विंटर टूरिज्म का हिस्सा बने। मीटिंग्स करनी हो, कॉन्फ्रेंसेस करनी हो, एग्जीबिशंस करने हो, तो विंटर का समय और देवभूमि इससे होनहार कोई जगह नहीं हो सकती है। मैं चाहूंगा कि सर्दियों में डेस्टिनेशन वेडिंग के लिए भी उत्तराखंड को देशवासी प्राथमिकता दें।
Supply chain plays a crucial role in achieving manufacturing excellence, and with its growing impact on Indian manufacturing and allied sectors, with India emerging as a key player in the global supply chain landscape, DD India's Tapish Bhattacharya spoke exclusively to Deepak Shetty, chairman of the CII Council on Manufacturing Excellence, to understand how India is shaping the future of supply chain dynamics.
Talk about India's growth in different sectors. We've seen Gati Shakti has given a major boost to India's manufacturing sector. How do you see Indian economy poised to grow in the next few years?
I think it's very heartening to note that the Indian economy has had a very steady growth last few years, and its trajectory is equally strong. Recently, the international, whether it is World Bank or IMF, they are all supported this whole trajectory that we are talking about of 6.5%, and we are absolutely confident that India is marching ahead in line with the Honorable Prime Minister's vision of being a $5 trillion economy.
So we saw that Indian manufacturing sector grew manifold, especially after the COVID. Do you believe that they are now ready if there is any disruption that happens internationally or anywhere else?
I think for years together, the Indian economy was supported by the services sector. The manufacturing sector is now coming to play, as you rightly said. And one of the key reasons is the various policies that the Honorable Government has announced, which are very conducive for the manufacturing sector, whether it is through the PLI schemes, which is encouraging more of FDA and also encouraging Indian entrepreneurs to get into manufacturing. The ease of doing business is again playing a very important role. And also the various announcements that have been made as a part of our budget. This year, during the budget, the Honorable Finance Minister made announcements on supporting the MSME sector. And we have seen globally the manufacturing sector has grown based on the support and the growth in the MSME sector. So I think the government has given the right impetus to support the growth in manufacturing sector, and I'm very confident that the future growth that we'll see, the manufacturing sector in India will play its role and be a huge contributing factor.
So, US has been talking about tariff cuts in different sectors. Do you believe that Indian manufacturers, Indian businessmen are ready to take on this particular challenges?
We'll wait and see when the announcements come. But I can only tell you that last few years, our investment in technology, our investment in innovation has made India a very strong alternative when people are looking at alternate supply chains around the world. If I can talk about JCB, last year last few years we have been exporting to more than 130 countries. Last year our largest exports were to USA. So I'm confident that the Indian industry will stand up to the challenge and continue to support our customers, whether they are in USA or any other part in the world.
This is Tapish Bhattacharya for DD India from Delhi.
Now let's take a quick look at other stories making news around the world. Rolling Stones guitarist Keith Richards received the Connecticut Governor's Award for Excellence on Wednesday for his cultural contributions in the state. In addition, he also receives the key to the state and a free library card to the Westport Library. The recent episode of power outage in Buenos Aires left approximately 620,000 residents and the government buildings without electricity. People rushed to buy gasoline in long queues seen at many places. Currently, the Argentine capital is experiencing a heat index of 44 degrees centigrade, prompting a yellow alert for extreme temperatures. Heavy rains lashed at New South Wales northern region along with gusty winds as Cyclone Alfred stalled off Australia's east coast. The storm is expected to make landfall near Brisbane on Saturday, bringing heavy rainfall, flooding and strong wind alongside. Mexican authorities have seized 32 kilos of fentanyl being transported in a freight truck carrying crates of cactus during an inspection by federal agents in the state of Sonora. The detail was confirmed from the Ministries of Defense, Navy and Security, Public Prosecutor's Office and Mexican National Guard. And still to come on DD India News Hour. On the other side, we'll deep dive and discuss Egypt's Gaza plan in view of Trump's latest stern threat to Hamas. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar calls for return of stolen territory from Pakistan, says Kashmir resolution near completion.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked, we just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and going back to a top story of President Donald Trump's stern warnings and threats to Hamas in view of the Gaza ceasefire. We are going to be joined by foreign affairs expert and senior journalist Atul Taneja ji on this broadcast. Thank you very much, Atul sir. Such a pleasure having you on the show.
Always a pleasure.
Yes. How do you see this latest development of US taking such a harsh line in sharp contrast to their earlier position of not engaging with terror organizations, and that those lines coming from President Trump? Where is this coming from, and what do you think could be the broader implications here?
It's very clear, Sakal, that President Trump is in a hurry to finish off all the conflicts, whether it's Ukraine, whether it is the Gaza conflict. So he's in a rush to do that because he has his other plans. He essentially would want to revive his, the Abraham Accords, which meant that normalization of Israel's ties with its Gulf neighbors. You can see that there are talks on Ukraine going in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is one country which has not joined the Abraham Accord. So, then the IMEC route. So these are his broad strategic goals. Now, what is coming in the way is this conflict. So he wants it to be wrapped up as quickly as possible. And I think he has upped the ante yesterday big time by giving such an ultimatum that either you fall in line or you're dead. So, I mean, it can't be harsher than that. The whole idea is to add enormous pressure onto Hamas and people who have leverage over Hamas, like the Qataris and the Turks. So I think that's the objective.
But is that, could that lead to some sort of a truce that we all are looking at? Because, that President Donald Trump's warning of hell to pay, quote unquote, should the Palestinian militant group really not comply, then its implications and their response, we don't know.
Yeah, so there is a real danger here of a full-scale conflict being reignited in that territory, in that geography. And President Trump has made it very clear that his support to Israel is going to be completely unqualified. And so, at this time, I don't think Hamas has too many cards because I don't think their backers, which essentially boils down to Iran, are in a position to re-enter this conflict. The Houthis have been weakened, and the Hezbollah, which is the militant group in Lebanon, has been very, very clearly weakened by the number of assassinations of its top leaders. So this is the moment. I don't see Hamas having too many cards but to comply with this ultimatum, because I think Trump means business here.
Yeah, and you look at the language, it's like a full-blown threat.
Absolutely.
Right. So US and Israel have, vehemently rejected this Gaza reconstruction plan endorsed by the Arab leaders. Trump is also endorsing Gaza free from Hamas vision already. So do you see there is a potential long-term truce in vision?
Well, see, look, there are two stages here. The first was really like ethnic cleansing, which President Trump had warned of, that, vacate the entire Gaza Strip, including its people, and let them be resettled in Arab areas. I think there's a shift from there. Now the thing is that the Palestinian people can stay in Gaza, but minus Hamas. So it's sort of narrowed down to that group, and I think that is the bottom line when it comes to the Americans, and that's the bottom line when it comes to the Israelis. That they can, after what happened on October 6th, there cannot be re-emergence of Hamas in a leadership position in Gaza. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Okay.
I think they've reached there, because he's also talking in his statement. He's also saying that people of Gaza have a beautiful future.
Yeah.
So there is a nuance which has been added to his earlier statement, which was a horrific statement to my mind, which was that all Palestinians in Gaza Strip have to vacate that land, which was essentially ethnic cleansing. So he's moved from that position. Now it's targeted specifically on Hamas.
What are the risks involved here? Sitting down with a designated terror group to advance his deal-making goals, this sharp contrast to the earlier position. Did anybody see this coming?
No, I think there's a consistent pattern here. In fact, it's a drawdown a bit, because earlier he said all Palestinians have to leave the territory. But now, after negotiations in Qatar, I think and these are direct negotiations between the Americans and the Hamas, which are taking place in Qatar. I think he has come down from, I think they are in a very weak position to mount any kind of effective resistance should a situation arise that the Americans, the Israelis with support of Americans, go after them in Gaza.
And do you also see some larger foreign policy impact as far as these latest developments and dramatic changes made by President Donald Trump in terms of negotiating with a terror outfit like Hamas is concerned?
I think they don't care. These are niceties which were there that you will not talk to. Everybody was also talking to the terrorists. Only thing it to happen through the back channel. And the personality of Trump comes out here. He said, why do all that? I'll talk directly to you guys, whether you are designated terrorists. And frankly, this designation of terrorism comes from the United Nations, and Trump doesn't really care too much about the United Nations. In fact, he's threatening to walk out of that. He's already walked out of its organizations like WHO.
Yes.
So frankly, it's a different ballgame altogether.
Yeah, the designated terrorist organization or the FTA and all those, in that sense, there's already a larger looming question about the relevance of the UN and how, or whether they have been successful in terms of setting a deterrence when it comes to, cracking down these terror organizations across the globe. Atul and Nejaji, the other angle that we would also like to understand from you, the European nations have also come out openly stating that Hamas, should be stripped of its governing role in Gaza Strip. How do you see that impacting the latest scenario now?
I think that's a united position of the West. It's a very different situation. When it comes to Hamas, I think the West, which is the collective West, including Europe, is on the same page. But when it comes to Ukraine, there's a complete breach of the Atlantic Alliance. Interesting that on this particular issue, they're more or less on the same side, though I don't think they will go publicly to endorse that blatant threat from Trump that you are dead or you comply or you fall in line. I mean, the language will be different, but I think in spirit they will go along with what the Americans and the Israelis think.
Okay, one final question. How do you see this overall impacting the so-called Gaza peace plan?
We are still far away from that, Sakal. We are not there right now. I mean,
Could it be a counterproductive kind of a situation, or prove to be counterproductive?
Counterproductive in the sense that can lead to another round of fighting. So we are reversing that process of ceasefire,
exactly, right.
stability of humanitarian aid, and it could all go, it'll be up in the air immediately. In fact, that particular process will be stalled the moment the bombs start falling once again.
That's very, very unfortunate. Yes. Well, let's see how this pans out in terms of more responses trickling in. And thank you very much, Atulji, for joining us on this broadcast.
You're very welcome, Sakal.
Thank you, sir. And now let's move on and take a quick look at the other stories that we are tracking for you at this hour on the show. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Wednesday spoke about steps taken by the government for development in Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Responding to a question from a member of the audience at the Chatham House in London, Minister Jaishankar said that India is waiting for the return of the stolen part of Kashmir, which is under illegal Pakistani occupation.
Look, on Kashmir, actually we have done, I think, a good job solving most of it. I think removing Article 370 was step number one. Then restoring growth and economic activity and social justice in Kashmir was step number two. Holding elections, which were done with a very high turnout, was step number three. I think the part we are waiting for is the return of the stolen part of Kashmir, which is on the under illegal Pakistani occupation. When that's done, I assure you, Kashmir solved.
India's Ministry of External Affairs has also condemned the provocative activities of a smaller group of separatists and extremists during visit of India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar to the UK. According to the statement attributable to the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, I quote, "We have seen the footage of a breach of security during the visit of Minister Jaishankar to the United Kingdom. We condemn the provocative activities of this small group of separatists and extremists. We deplore the misuse of democratic freedoms by such elements." Unquote. Well, in Ladakh, following a recent heavy snowfall, the Border Roads Organization has commenced snow clearance operations on the Zojila Pass axis, aiming to restore access and ensure safe arrival in the region. The region recorded over 5 feet of snowfall, making it one of the heaviest snowfalls of the season. BRO officials stated that while now clearance is usually carried out promptly during light snowfall, the intensity of the recent snowfall led to delays until weather conditions improved. As soon as the snowfall subsidized, BRO mobilized men and machinery on a war footing to restore connectivity at the earliest. Notably, National Highway 1 remained open until February 25th, marking a record duration of accessibility due to favorable weather and relentless BRO efforts. Apart from the Zojila axis on National Highway 1D, BRO's Project Vijayak is actively engaged in clearing National Highway 1 between Zojila and Leh and other key routes, including the Kargil Batalik Road, Sapi Road, Umba Road and Mushku Road, which are very crucial for both civilian movement and defense logistics. And now let's take a look at other stories making news. The capital of the Indian Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, Srinagar, continues to experience winter chill. The Met Department reported a minimum temperature of 1.8 degrees centigrade and maximum of 12 degrees centigrade today. The city's picturesque Dal Lake provides a serene backdrop amid these cold weather conditions. Residents and visitors are seen bundling up to stay warm as they enjoy the wintry scenery. Under the aegis of Operation Sadbhavna, the Indian Army's Ace of Spades Division organized a skill development training for local youth in the Indian Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. The military initiative is reaching out to 30 local youth participants to upskill them in essential technical skills. This was followed by a mock drill exercise in Anantnag region of Jammu and Kashmir. In Siddharthanagar in UP, a team of experts is using artificial intelligence-powered TB diagnostic equipment to screen patients as part of the Government of India's 100-day intensive TB elimination campaign. Initiated on 7 December 2024, this campaign is a key component of the National Tuberculosis Elimination Program under the National Health Mission, aiming to eradicate TB from India by 2025. The WHO's Global TB Report 2024 commends India's significant progress in case detections. And coming up next, we also talk about on the other side all the soccer action where 10-man Barcelona secured 1-0 win against host Benfica in their Champions League round of 16 clash. And Bangladesh's veteran wicketkeeper Mushfiqur Rahim announces his retirement from ODI after Champions Trophy debacle.
This is a special episode focused on the extraordinary achievements of India's G20 presidency and its continuing legacy.
India is the only country which has been able to achieve success on close to 112 outcomes in 88 different paragraphs. This extent of consensus on a very, very ambitious and inclusive agenda has never before been achieved. There was positivity, there was optimism, there was confidence, and there was a perspective that India would provide good leadership which would be fair, just, and ambitious and inclusive. And that is what India did.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and let's now move on. Minister of State for External Affairs and Textiles, Pabitra Margarita, is visiting 4 Latin American countries, Uruguay and the Bahamas, Barbados and Nicaragua, on a week-long tour to participate in important events and bilateral meetings. He'll begin his tour this week in Sao Paulo, the region's financial capital, where he met with the Indian business community members. DD India's Shobhan Saxena reports from Sao Paulo in Brazil.
In the meeting hosted by India's ambassador to Brazil, Mr. Suresh Reddy, the Minister of State interacted with companies representing IT, pharma, textile, banking and other industries. The Minister spoke about the importance of trade and culture for engaging with the region.
I'm really delighted and honored to be amongst our business community from India here in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And so they are doing very good business, and they are really not only doing business, they are ambassadors of Indian art, culture and trade as well. The business between both the nations are about 15 billion US dollar, and we have immense potential to increase it by manifold, and our government as well as all the stakeholders are working on that.
As the regional headquarters of most Indian companies are based in Sao Paulo, the Minister discussed the ways to enhance trade with the region.
Latin American, Caribbean countries, all these 33 plus countries are always very close to our country, traditionally, historically, culturally. We have a very strong relation, people to people, government to government. So Latin American and Caribbean countries are always close to our heart. So now I'm visiting 4 countries, that is Uruguay, Barbados, Bahamas and Nicaragua. The Barbados has already conferred their highest civilian award to our Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji. They have already announced it's a very prestigious award of their nation.
Mr. Margarita asked the traders in the areas of textiles to use government initiatives like Bharat to promote Indian textiles in the region.
A few pointers would set the tone. Right from our handloom products, handicraft products to the man-made products, right from yarn, be it silk or natural fiber, to the finished product of apparels or even new modern era technical textile. In all the segments, our country is prospering. We have a very strong history, legacy, and our strong practice our textile, and it is very popular. Like all the other parts of our in the world, it's very popular in our Latin American region also. So our ministry and the stakeholders, especially the right from the the handloom organizations to the big players of our textile industry, are exporting and importing, doing both side business here in Latin America.
The government of India is very focused on having stronger relations with Latin America, especially in the areas of culture and textiles. This is Shobhan Saxena for DD India in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
In Bangladesh, students have blocked the railway line in Rajashahi area on Wednesday, demanding an end to Dhaka University and Dhaka-centric dominance in power and appointments across all sectors, and calling for decentralization, complaining that from Advisory Council appointments to the University Grants Commission, Dhaka and Dhaka University dominate everywhere. With fierce rage, the protesters demanded equal recruitment opportunities across the country, moving beyond Dhaka centralization, fighting for equal opportunities. Students of private universities in Dhaka clashed with student leaders Sarjis Alam and chief organizer of the north of the newly launched National Citizen Party and his followers on Wednesday night. They've demanded a proper representation of private universities in the committee of the newly formed student organization. You're watching DD Indian News Hour. Let's quickly switch on to some sports news. Up for soccer, Liverpool edged past host Paris Saint-Germain 1-0 in the first leg of their heavyweight Champions League last 16 match. Harvey Elliott, who had replaced Mohamed Salah, scored the winner of the Darwin Núñez assist in the 87th minute to hand Liverpool the advantage. The second leg of their round of 16 clash will take place on 12th of March, where Liverpool will host PSG at Anfield in England. The team that will emerge victorious will face either Aston Villa or Club Brugge in the quarters of the Champions League. 10-man Barcelona secured a 1-0 win against host Benfica in their Champions League round of 16 clash. Teenage defender Kubarsi was given a red card for a foul in 22nd minute, which resulted into a depleted Barcelona side. However, Barcelona's veteran goalkeeper pulled off a string of brilliant saves that kept them in the game. Rafinha rewarded his keeper's efforts with a low shot in the 61st minute that earned his team a big win. Both teams clash again in the second leg of their last 16 tie on 1st of March. Bangladesh's veteran wicketkeeper Mushfiqur Rahim has announced his retirement from ODI cricket after his team's disappointing run in the Champions Trophy. The 36-year-old wicketkeeper batsman made the announcement via a heartfelt post on his official Facebook page on Wednesday night. However, he confirmed that he will continue to represent Bangladesh in Test cricket. This decision comes after his earlier retirement from T20 internationals in September 2022. A decorated player with 274 ODIs to his credit, Mushfiqur holds the record for the most ODIs played for Bangladesh. The 37-year-old is second highest run scorer for the country with 7,795 runs, featuring 9 centuries and 49 half-centuries in the 50-over format of the game. Well, March 9th will mark 25 years of the London Eye, the world's most iconic ride. The attraction has welcomed more than 85 million visitors, featured in hundreds of films and television shows, and borne witnesses to around 8,000 proposals. The observation wheel, which offers visitors a 30-minute ride in a glass pod, was supposed to stand for 5 years before being dismantled, but its popularity led to it being made a permanent fixture on the River Thames last year. The wheel was the idea of husband and wife architects David Marks and Julia Barfield to celebrate the millennium. Its shape symbolizes the cycle of life. In fact, a short film titled Turning 25 London's Eye is being released on Thursday in celebration of the monument's anniversary. With that, it's time to wrap up this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Thank you.